All righty. So thank you guys so much for coming. The Greater Baltimore Climate Summit continues. In this session, we're so honored to be partnered with the Maryland League of Conservation Voters Education Fund. They have an amazing presentation to showcase how environmental justice and climate finance are going to be a part of the ongoing session. And we're just super grateful to have them. Thank you to Rebecca and thank you to Marissa. And so we're going to go through some introductions of the hosts and we'll overview the session and the bills that are relevant to environmental justice and climate finance. We'll have a brief Q&A. You guys will be able to ask some questions. And then we're going to go into some breakout rooms so that you guys can talk with one another, network and discuss some of the questions that Rebecca and Marissa have planned for you guys. Then we'll wrap up and you guys will come into the big room. If you want to talk about what you discussed in the breakout room, that'd be really cool. So everybody can hear some of the high level and takeaways that you all discussed in the breakout rooms. And so really quickly, a lot of you were at the Greater Baltimore Climate Summit, but if you weren't there, it was a super amazing summit highlighting funding opportunities in the region for environmental justice and climate action. We talked about synchronizing agendas across organizations and agencies, and also talked about developing some strategic partnerships to carry on the work. And I will pass it to Marissa.
Thank you, Curry. And just moving my mouse around, not as quick as I wanted to. All right, so thank you for the introduction also. And we are so grateful to be here partnering with the Greater Baltimore Climate Summit. My colleague, Rebecca, who will introduce herself in a moment, and I were both attending the summit and heard a lot of topics that are things that we work on and saw an opportunity to keep the conversation going and keep momentum going. And so we're grateful that you all have joined us. At Maryland LCV and at the Maryland LCV Education Fund, we envision a healthy environment for everyone. And to that end, we work to educate and activate people for equitable and just political action for clean water, for healthy air, and for climate resilient communities. And so that today we are going to talk about things, the legislative session and what's coming up that is related to both climate justice, climate funding, and environmental justice. The legislative session, as a quick overview, in case any of you are new to this, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page about what we're dealing with. Maryland General Assembly meets for 90 days. They are a part-time legislature. So helpful to know if you are reaching out to your delegates or senators, many of them have other jobs outside of being your delegate or your senator. But in these 90 days, they are full-time for 90 days. It started last week and they will be in through April 7th. On that last day of session, April 7th, they have to present they have to have a balanced budget passed by that last day. And that's really key because we're going to talk about the budget landscape this year. It's really taking a lot of air out of the room. And so important to recognize that that's why, because by the end of the session, if they pass no other bills, it doesn't matter. The one thing they have to do is pass a balanced budget. So as we're talking about what we should expect this year, we are looking at the budget, like I said. This year, Maryland is facing a $3 billion budget shortfall. And that is due to many of the programs that Maryland has set up, which are great programs and are things like the Blueprint for Education, and some of our transportation funding has really been contributing to that. And the cost of infrastructure, also some of the other social programs, health insurance, and those sorts of things that end up costing a lot of money. And Maryland has to decide how we manage that, because the income that the state has coming in is not matching the the amount of money, the projected spending to cover all of those obligations. And so that brings us to this session where that's going to be a key topic because, as I said, they have to pass a balanced budget. And education is a big part of that because that's a big piece of that funding gap. But also energy is going to be a really major topic this year. As we know, we have a lot of increasing demand for energy. And what we really want to see is increasing demand for clean energy. We want clean energy to be meeting that demand. But at the same time, there's a lot of concern about increasing rates. You may have heard about your BGE bills going up because of the auction prices for energy across our region. And as a result, those two concerns are going to meet head to head in the legislature this session. Additionally, we have our federal landscape. Maryland is 10 to 14% of our workforce in Maryland are federal employees, which means if the change in administration causes any sort of change in moving those jobs, they've been threatening to move jobs out of Maryland, out of Virginia, and to other parts of the country. And should that happen, that would be a really devastating effect for Maryland because of what a large portion of our workforce is working for the federal government. Additionally, we know that we're expecting we'll see a lack of regulatory support because of the change in administration and the change in party leadership. And so things like Justice 40 that we've seen from the Biden administration is no longer guaranteed. And all of those things are things to be watching and things to keep in mind as we're going into the Maryland legislative session, that it's on legislators' minds how we can shore up these programs in Maryland that are part of our state values that may no longer be reflected in the federal leadership that we're going to see. And the last point is that it's the third year of a 4-year term for the governor and for the legislature. And oftentimes, not necessarily, but oftentimes the third year is that sort of sweet spot where legislation's been introduced in the first year. It's been thought over in the second year, and the third year is the year that you really expect to see it passed finally. And so there is some, given all that the other backdrop, unsure if this third year will be the magic third year or not, but oftentimes that is the way of the agenda in Maryland legislature. And with that, I'm going to pass it to my colleague, Rebecca.
Thanks so much, Marissa, and thanks to the Greater Baltimore Climate Summit for your partnership and for hosting with us this event today. We wanted to carry forward the momentum from the summit because you all asked through surveys and during the summit to focus on environmental justice and to focus on climate financing. And we do a lot of work to change state level policy to create the structures and the systemic change that support our vision of a healthy environment for Maryland. And we knew that there was going to be environmental justice legislation and climate financing legislation that would be introduced during the session, and that a strong Baltimore advocacy, on those issues would be very meaningful during the legislative session. And so we are so excited to see so many of you online today to follow up from the summit, and hope to see many of you in conversation tomorrow evening at our happy hour to follow up on this event. And so to continue these conversations and to make sure that legislators are hearing from all of you and that you have what you need to talk to legislators about the key issues you identified through the Greater Baltimore Climate Summit, which were environmental justice and climate financing. And so today we're going to focus in on, there will be every session, there's about 3,000 to 20, maybe 2,500 bills that get introduced. And so legislators are not just dealing with the 4 bills we're talking about today, but many more. And so it's really important that you have your voice heard throughout the session on the things that matter to you. And we hope that providing you with the information today and the tools and resources to advocate for these, that you feel prepared to talk to your legislators about these and to talk to key decision makers about these issues in particular. And we hope to serve as a resource to all of you as you have questions or need the platforms for advocacy. So thanks again for joining us today. We're first going to review two pieces of legislation that are in service of environmental justice, and then two pieces of legislation that are in service to climate revenue, generating more climate revenue in the state of Maryland. And for the environmental justice portion, I am thrilled to pass the mic to another partner, the South Baltimore Community Land Trust. We'll be hearing from Shoshonda Campbell. The South Baltimore Community Land Trust has really been leading both the advocacy component and the writing actual legislative language on the Cherish Act. And so I'm going to pass the mic over to Shoshonda and pick up on climate financing after we hear from her on environmental justice legislation.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Rebecca, for passing it over. So the Trash Act is really, I don't know if you want to go to the next slide already. Or maybe mine didn't update. Oh, yep. So the Trash Act, which SBCLT, along with MAGIC, the Mid-Atlantic Justice Coalition, which we are also a part of, have been working to create a law that literally remedies the disproportionate exposure of pollutants in certain areas and communities. And so in South Baltimore, where I do a lot of my work at, we have an open air coal pile, which you can see on the screen. You can see the medical waste incinerator. You can see the trucks, almost 200 trucks pass within an hour. And so it's just a lot of polluting industry, over 7 very stationary polluting industries to be exact, in this community. And so you can just understand what the impact is on human health in the community, and just also the burden of the exposure that is happening in the community. And so really quickly, when I got involved when I was in high school, and there was a proposal to build another incinerator. So it was going to be one of the largest, burning around 4,000 tons of waste. And it's literally less than 4 miles away from the Bresco incinerator that we already have in Baltimore City, which burns a little over half of the amount that incinerator would have been burning. And we were able to stop that incinerator from being built, but it was also disheartening, even as students, as kids, that we didn't have any policy to protect our communities from being a dumping ground or a sacrifice zone for these facilities that was just taking over, and they were reaping all of the benefits, and we were not getting any benefits from these facilities. One of the things they promised was jobs. That's not even happening. And so a lot of times, these permits are looked at for these facilities in their silos, but the pollution is not in its silo. It creates a greater impact when all these pollutants are combined together to health. And so that's how our law should be looking at that. It should be looking at the cumulative impacts that's happening in these communities when looking at these permits. And so one of the major portions of this bill is to be able to use environmental justice as a means to say, this community is already overburdened, we're not going to keep overburdening this community. And so it's to directly deny those permits up front, because we cannot keep building communities like this. This is not okay. And we have now already acknowledged that these EJ communities exist, and now we have to take it a step further and say that we're not going to keep on overburdening these facilities, overburdening these communities, and keeping them environmental justice communities. And so this would apply for expansion permits, new permits, and then also when looking at permits that's already grandfathered in, also creating stronger standards for those particular permits also. And so its overall act is really just to mitigate a lot of the harms that's being done in these communities and saying enough is enough. And so we're super excited that this is happening and that it's making it into session, because we have to advance. We have to take the next step to stop these communities from having this unjust exposure. And so this has been worked on by multiple communities that will be affected by this particular bill. And for the Reclaiming Renewable Energy Act, also a really important bill that we have all been working on for many years. And so really just the backup, the RPS was established in Maryland to support and subsidize the development of renewable energy. That was its original intent, to promote clean, green, and sustainable energy solutions. However, over the many years, it has strayed from that purpose. And so dirty facilities such as trash burning incinerators have been able to exploit this particular portfolio. And so they're receiving millions of dollars in subsidies, which I should say, it is also tech ratepayers that's paying these subsidies that's going to these particular facilities. So they're basically paying to burn their cities, right? And so a lot of times when we tell that to people, like they're like, "What? Why is that happening? I don't want this thing here." But that's because this incinerator here in this picture, the Brusco incinerator, which is the one that's in Baltimore City, is considered renewable energy, which definitely coincide with the fact that it is not. It is a dirty source of energy. It should not be in a renewable portfolio. And so basically the Reclaiming Renewable Energies Act is to basically redirect it to its actual purpose, which is to actually give things like wind and solar a leg up, so we can actually see those flourishing. But we can't see those flourishing when we are constantly giving millions of dollars to these dirty sources of energies like this Brusco incinerator. And so we're hoping that this bill pass. We have had a lot of great breakthroughs, even in Baltimore City with this bill, where it has been one of the bills that's supported by our mayor, Brandon Scott, and it has also been taken on by the Senate President Ferguson, Bill Ferguson, as the lead sponsor. And so we're really hoping that this bill can get through this session so we can actually get one of these things out of this portfolio and clean it up.
Yeah, thanks, Shoshanda. And just really briefly on the Cherish Act is sponsored by Delegate Jazz Lewis in the House and Senator Clarence Lamb in the Senate. We don't have bill language to share yet. We will, however, have a fact sheet that we will send, a coalition fact sheet. I see a couple other members of the coalition working on the Cherish Act on the call joining us. And they're working hard on a fact sheet that'll go around to folks in the follow-up email that we'll send to everybody from this webinar. And there'll be ample opportunity to weigh in and support the Cherish Act. One of those ways is it was actually voted an environmental community priority. And so on January 28th in Annapolis, from 6 to 7:30, the Environmental Community Summit is being hosted. And we'll have another member of the South Baltimore Community Land Trust up on stage talking about the Cherish Act as an environmental community priority. So everyone here is invited to join us in Annapolis on January 28th in support of the Cherish Act as part of that Environmental Community Summit. And then the Reclaim Renewable Energy Act, it is sponsored, as Shoshana said, by Senate President Ferguson and then Vaughn Stewart in the House. And that bill actually already has a House hearing. It has been it's been dropped. So it's available on the website on the Maryland General Assembly webpage. It's SB 10 and HB 220, if memory serves. And it has a hearing next week in the House on Thursday, January 23rd. And there is going to be a rally on Lawyers Mall right outside of the state capitol at 11 a.m. In support of the Reclaim Renewable Energy Act. So lots of, as promised, ample opportunity to follow up and support these pieces of legislation. So just two key dates for each of those. So I encourage folks to sign up and join us for the summit and the rally next week for Reclaim Renewable Energy. It's in a constrained budget year, it's always smart to invest those dollars in a meaningful way. And so just to emphasize the point Shoshanda said, that state ratepayer dollars probably should not be going to subsidize trash incineration when we know we're behind on solar goals. And we could be investing that money in truly clean and renewable energy like solar. Speaking of budget, we know there's going to be a $3 billion deficit that folks are working on closing through some budget provisions this session. And we also know the state came out with, at the end of 2023, a climate pollution reduction plan. And the climate pollution reduction plan is how we're going to the state roadmap for reaching our climate goals of 60% greenhouse gas emissions reductions by 2031 and net zero by 2045. And in doing so, yielding over $300 million of benefits in health benefits from improved air pollution. that plan takes a $1 billion annual investment of state resources. And so to get to that $1 billion, we need new sources of revenue that are dedicated to climate funding. And so one of those solutions is the Coal Dust Cleanup and Asthma Remediation Fund, which is sponsored by Delegate Stein in the House and Senator Rosapep in the Senate. Again, waiting for legislative language for live on the website. But what it does is it creates a dedicated fossil fuel mitigation fund that's based on what we already do on an oil transport fee. And so we charge coal being moved through the state of Maryland. And it's estimated that if we do that, it generates $300 million of new revenue for the state budget. And what this bill does is say of the money generated from this fund, 40% of the fund goes to overburdened and underserved communities. So using the Justice 40, the federal Justice 40 principles and the executive order from the Biden-Harris administration, using that Justice 40 approach, and dedicating $5 million annually for asthma mitigation targeted towards communities living along those coal transport routes. And so that's a bill that we anticipate generates revenue to go towards implementation of that climate plan, which has a huge return on investment. That's Coal Dust Cleanup and Asthma Remediation Fund. Another climate revenue bill that'll be introduced this year, the Renew Act. That's the responding to emergency needs from extreme weather. It's an acronym, as is Cherish. So the Renew Act is a polluter pay principle, so holding fossil fuel companies accountable. They knew they were harming people for decades, and we're saying, now you got to pay for your damages. It's very similar to an approach thinking about tobacco companies. You know, you can even go back to sort of lead paint companies, knowing that lead was in paint, you know, and continuing to use it when we know that the harms that lead causes for our cognitive development. Same deal. These big companies knew that their fossil fuels were contributing to climate change and the damages that caused. So there's a one-time assessment of $9 billion on the biggest companies having business in Maryland. It's being introduced on the federal level as well. The state level legislation is modeled off of Senator Chris Van Hollen's federal legislation. And the bill is also very specific about what those funds would be dedicated to, including several remediation efforts and adaptation efforts as we seek to prepare our state for further impacts from climate change. So it has several different dedicated funds regarding health and justice and fixing potholes because of swings in extreme weather. So there's a lot of good dedicated funding in that bill. And that is also has a hearing on Thursday, the 23rd in the House. But that's Senator Hester and Delegate David Fraser Hidalgo and Delegate Boafo. So that would be the Renew Act House hearing next week on Thursday in the House. So those are the pieces of legislation we wanted to run through. And we have lots of opportunities for you to stay engaged. We talked about key dates already. Maryland LCV hosts a weekly Friday digest. So every Friday at noon, you're going to hear from us, just 30 minutes every Friday. Grab your lunch and come hang out with us. You can sign up for the series on our website and learn. We're going to walk through different bills. We're going to talk to key legislators, key decision makers, and run through kind of try to keep you up to date during the session as things start to move. We'll have action alerts that we share that we can amplify with all of you. Maryland LCV is also hosting a lobby night in Annapolis on February 17th. That's a federal holiday, President's Day. And the legislators actually hold evening sessions on Mondays. And so this will be in the afternoon. We'll do a training, and then we can help you set up meetings with your legislators on February 17th. So stay tuned for more information about that. And then we're all leading up to this continued engagement in the 2025 Greater Baltimore Climate Summit. So hopefully we'll make this an annual event. I'm always wonder if I'm being overly ambitious by calling something the first annual, but hoping that this is our first annual legislative preview with all of you and with the Greater Baltimore Climate Summit. So help us make that a reality by staying engaged and letting us know how we can be helpful to you in your advocacy. I think with that, we'll open it up for questions.
Yeah. So,
Don't be shy.
right.
Feel
If
free
people
to-
have questions, you can put it in the chat or just come off mute and go ahead and ask.
Right. Yeah. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. I know I've got a lot of questions, but I can always ask you guys offline.
Yeah, you have my cell phone number. You can ask me anytime. So if anybody don't miss your opportunity now to ask.
Well,
All right, I think
I have a
yeah, go ahead.
question, if you mind. I don't know if it's something that applies, but is there a plan in place for different communities with this climate change, as we see the wildfires burning in California? You know, we don't know what's natural disasters that's awaiting us here in Baltimore. But do the district, I know, have plans in place, but is there anything within your bill that help us get more of a plan in place to have people more prepared, get more businesses involved, having people lined up, so it won't be a last minute thing when things go on?
That's
Yeah,
a
it's a
great question.
great
Go ahead,
question.
Rebecca.
Yeah, I think we can answer that in a couple different ways. There has been previous legislation to actually require jurisdictions to have preparedness plans. I don't think those bills really went anywhere, quite frankly. Jurisdictions don't always love when the state mandates them to have plans. So the legislation didn't go anywhere, but it's a good conversation starter. I will say, my background's public health, and I know that the city health department has some plans in place. There's ideas about early warning signs, things about how to help you know what to wear on a really hot day. Make sure your kids are hydrated. So there's all kinds of practical tips that are available from the health department. Like in the summertime, making sure that you don't have standing pools of water after large rainfalls in your backyard, because that's a breeding ground for mosquitoes, right? And which are more likely to carry diseases as the planet warms, right? And as mosquitoes move north. And so I think the health department is a really good resource for preparedness plans and practical tips. I think that the state health department also has additional resources in addition to the local health department. The Baltimore Office of Sustainability is also a really great resource and has a climate plan for the city, and works on and has a lot of outreach initiatives and a lot of preparedness initiatives for the city. So I would say Baltimore City Health Department and the Baltimore Office of Sustainability are two really great resources on preparedness, on community engagement and outreach, and have sort of bigger picture plans, but also really practical tips.
And I'll just add that I don't know if this is our Greater Baltimore group, so I don't know if there's anyone coming here from Baltimore County, but there are certainly opportunities in Baltimore County to continue to encourage them to follow the city in this regard and put together a full sustainability plan and have resiliency planning, because that's something that actually the city is far ahead of the county on. Kari, did you want to add anything?
No, I wanted to thank Rebecca and thank you now for answering. We do have
I have more hands up.
2 hands up. David and Alicia, you guys first.
Hey, I just wanted to, you might have shared this. My name is Alicia. But as far as the lobby day on the 17th, are we going to be able to talk to legislators? Is there going to be teams that focus on all 4 bills? Or is there going to be like one bill we're focusing on that day?
Great question. And thanks for the distinguished. So that's actually a Maryland LCV lobby day. So Maryland LCV has 4 legislative priorities that we've identified. So Cherish is one of them. The ACE Act, which is the Abundant Affordable Clean Energy Act, Nearshore Farm and Finance, and the Coal Dust Cleanup and Asthma Remediation Fund. So there's a slightly different overlapping but slightly different focus for that lobby day. So it's not a one-for-one match, but and we'll have lots of prep available for the how to talk about those bills. And yes, the idea is that you would meet with your delegation on that evening.
Okay, cool, excellent. I saw that update and it was awesome. I loved it.
Thanks for the question.
I think Dante was next. We're ready for you, Dante. Okay, I think he's
Oh, there he is.
back.
I almost fell out of my chair there.
Are you okay?
My alarm, no worries. But hey, folks, I'm Dante Swinton. I am the executive director of Our Zero Waste Future, and I wanted to know if folks on the call have seen any proposed follow-up bills regarding carbon capture policy here in this state. I know last session, one delegate introduced a bill, at least outing interest or some level of opening interest in carbon capture policy here in Maryland, and recognizing it as a false solution is certainly very concerning that anyone would advocate for that. But I'm curious if you've seen anything either proposed, whether it's, separate legislation or even in the Maryland carbon pollution reduction plan, I think you mentioned earlier, because that would draw some serious concern and should draw from environmental activists for sure.
Thanks, Dante. Thanks for the question. And yes, it has been discussed in prior sessions. I have not seen anything yet specifically on carbon capture and storage for this session. Other states, particularly ones that are more that have more oil and gas production, I'm thinking of Louisiana in particular, does include in their clean energy standard, like they categorize carbon capture and storage as clean energy. Like, hey, if you have a fossil fuel plant, but you are eliminating or significantly reducing the emissions from it, that counts as clean energy. That is and we would, yeah, I think that would be quite problematic to be included in a Maryland definition of clean energy. It has been put forward in prior iterations of a clean energy bill under a different administration in the state of Maryland. I have not seen it, but I'll give the caveat that I know of about a dozen energy bills that are coming forward, and there are likely to be more. So I can't say for certain that it will not be introduced. I can say I haven't seen it in the energy legislation that I've seen so far, but it's a good flag to look out for. And we can certainly alert, if I do see it, can certainly alert the appropriate parties.
Awesome. Get that.
Thanks for the question.
Thanks, Dante. I do see another hand. Michelle Joseph?
That's me. Thank you so much. This is great. I really am excited about it. I'm Michelle Joseph. I'm the president of Next Generation Inc. that's focused on increasing the number of women and people of color in clean energy. And I wanted to talk to you about workforce and lobbying and legislation focused on workforce within the Baltimore area to increase those who are focused on jobs and climate resiliency, as well as climate-related jobs. Are there any bills out there that are focused on that, or is it kind of wrapped up in the same legislation that you spoke of?
Yeah, I don't know if Shoshana or Marissa, you have things to add. A couple of years ago, when the Climate Solutions Now Act passed, it expanded the state's climate conservation core program, and I believe expanded the type of work that people in that program could do to specifically focus on clean energy initiatives in overburdened and underserved communities. So that would be a great place to look, sort of implementation of that aspect of the Climate Solutions Now Act. And I am more than happy to send that language when that was put into that bill. In terms of what's being introduced new this session, I know that the ACE Act, the Abundant Affordable Clean Energy Act, does focus on supplier diversity and labor provisions in what it has in there on in further investments in clean energy. A lot of other places where I've seen workforce being discussed is in the offshore wind sort of development and supply chain conversations. There's a lot of groups getting involved because of the investment in offshore wind in the state of Maryland off the coast of Ocean City. And in addition, the development of Sparrows Point and seeing how Sparrows Point Steel and all of the jobs being created across Maryland in the clean energy space around offshore wind. So it's not just the operations and maintenance facility in West Ocean City. It's not just the vessels, going out and the maintenance of the building and maintenance of the turbines themselves, but also in other parts of Maryland, like Sparrows Point Steel. So there's a lot going on in the workforce development space. And we have some partners who are specifically, doing training, workforce training on offshore wind to have the workforce ready. The other place where I hear about that a lot is electricians, that as we electrify buildings and as we electrify cars, that there's a different skill set needed, and that there's going to be this increasing need for electricians. And so folks interested in, a forward-looking career in clean energy might also be interested in electrician apprenticeship programs and working with electricians. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. Some of it is through legislation, and then some of it is through implementation of legislation that passed, and also getting involved in some of these organizations that are investing in workforce training and other opportunities like that across clean energy. So I hope that helps, and happy to talk more.
It does. I definitely would love to talk to you more, especially around electricians. Thank you very much.
I think we have another question from Artrice. Feel free to come off mute.
Yes. Thank you so much for the partnership and all the information absorbing about legislation and bills. And so one of the things that I just wanted to ask when Tyrod asked about preparedness plans, before we can get to that, we have to talk about the needs of the community and the environmental issues that actually exist in the communities and bring awareness about that. So I want to kind of talk through some of the tools that may be available. I had an opportunity to serve on the as a lead technical assistance provider for the Community Change Grant. There's federal tools like the EJ screening tool. So can you guys just help me flesh out some of the tools that are available for some of the participants who are on the call that may not be as familiar with some of the environmental issues or justice issues that they may need to advocate specifically within districts? I just recently went on a tool and discovered that the community in which I live in is almost 90% being diabetes. Like you said, public health, we're in a food desert. And so that's one of the, discussions I just want to bring about awareness, the tools and ways that we can find the environmental justice issues that exist in our districts.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that question. I want to do something that's a little bit off script. I'm one of the co-founders of the HBCU Environmental Justice Tech Collaborative, and I see some of the members on the call, and Dr. David A. Paget, who was on the advisory board to support with the development of EPA's EJ screen, is on. And so I would like to give him an opportunity, if he's available, to kind of speak about environmental justice mapping tools and how organizations can leverage those tools to get an understanding of the burdens that their communities are experiencing.
Dr. Paget is listening in.
A couple different things. He's
possibly at the airport, as we joke about that, right?
Never met anyone that travels more than Dr. Paget. But
I think I saw Dr. Graham. Did you see Dr. Graham as well?
Oh, Dr. Graham is here as well. If you want to come off mute, talk a little bit about the EJ screen and CGIS and some of our projects.
Oh, I had to find my mute button. And hello, everyone. Uh, so we have developed a tool. It's a geospatial-based tool that can help track federal funding uh, down to the state level, down to the local level. And that tool is a spinoff from the EPA's environmental justice tool that we recognized didn't have race involved in that tool, and we developed that in conjunction with um, Texas Southern University. And so that tool we have streamlined and put to a rigorous test, and we've been beta testing it as well. And it's a tool that organizations can use to give them substantial access to the data in terms of funding and what it provides and for those communities. And so that's the tool that we have pioneered and have been beta testing and developing at the same time. In addition to that, we have also been providing technical assistance to the EPA in various areas as far as green infrastructure, resilience hubs, um, um, and many other areas within the areas of environmental justice. And so we stand posed as a team to provide that technical assistance throughout um, actually the country. And because we've been doing that, I believe since March of last year. And so we have put together a lot of that type of technical assistance as a technical team, and we continue to do that. We also work with communities on the ground. We've recognized that communities need an advocate, and that advocate, we feel very strongly needs to have a technical background to be an advocate. Policymakers, they're great. They do great things. But from a technical perspective, you're talking about greenhouse gases, you're talking about various pollutants, you're talking about brownfields, you're talking about important features of the built environment, and we identify that. My background is in architecture and civil engineering, and over the years, I've learned how to use geospatial technology to help identify those things and work with communities as well. Our technical team is comprised of geoscientists, economists, engineers, policymakers, community activists. And so we bring a package that no one else has, basically. And so we can be onboarded to your communities or your programs as your technical team and provide that service. We feel very strongly that, and we represent the historical Black college and universities sector. So most of us, if not all of us, are either affiliated or graduates of HBCU environments. And we're very passionate about our community. So we understand that this type of technical assistance that we bring covers over 100 years of experience amongst us in the environmental justice sector. Dr. Padgett is a nationally, internationally known geoscientist and geographer. I mean, he establishes the foundation for everything we do. And we have Dr. Archie at Tennessee State. He travels internationally as well, working with communities internationally and doing geospatial and research. We have Dr. LeBear at Morgan State, who's an economist and policy specialist. So we have a broad reach in our technical capacity in bringing to you all across the various sectors that you are in now, and bringing that to you as providers for your various communities, projects, etc. So that's a quick and dirty look at it. But we're on the ground. We're
Yes.
groundbreakers, and we're really on the front line of environmental justice in our communities that are impacted by all of these infrastructure projects and the like.
And Dr. Graham, we appreciate that. And I just think for me, the thing that I think that the takeaway is, right, with the information that was shared, we talk about the legislative bills and things that we're going to lobby and advocate for. The matrix and the tools that have been, some of them have been discussed, allows for the community that's advocating data to support the needs that are within the community. And sometimes when you go to your councilman, or if you go to your senator, or you go to your delegate and you say, hey, I'm in a food desert, and they try to brush it off like it's nothing concerning, you can talk about the tool that you use to speak to the percentage of people in the community that are, have diabetes based on a state or federal matrix. And so that's why, as we talk about advocacy and the things that we want to do to improve our communities within the environment, it's important to also have matrix and data, federally, state, and local, that can support the passion and the advocacy that we want to do in our community. So thank you, Dr. Graham.
And Ms. Autrice,
Well,
I think it's really important to mention the Maryland, because we're specifically talking about advocating with Maryland legislators.
Yes.
The state of Maryland has very specific definitions of overburdened and underserved that were informed by the Mid-Atlantic Justice Coalition that Shoshana mentioned earlier, and Dr. Jacoby Wilson and his team at the University of Maryland School of Public Health. So they did a lot of work on looking at what indicators make sense to go into the definition of overburdened and underserved for exactly the reason you're talking about, so that a lack of definition could no longer be an excuse for inaction for policy change. And so we all need to be, the definitions of overburdened and underserved really feed into MDE's EJ screening tool, and the Cherish Act seeks to give MDE the authority to make decisions based on that tool and that information. And Shoshana, I see you coming off mute, so
Thank you, Rebecca. We get very passionate about this. And so, we want to make sure that we are empowered with the tools that we need, like you said, so that we can advocate. So go ahead. Is it Shasharonda? Go ahead. I didn't want to interrupt.
No, I was going to say the same thing that you already hit on, Rebecca, but I also think to add to that, and I think you guys are hitting on it, which is we're also a part of the TIC-TAC, which is the Darwin Community Technical Assistance Center, and we're Region 3 hub partners. And so even when it comes to being able to get access to that information and even figuring out where to start to use that information, that's technical assistance that we can offer to groups. So the intake form for that one, I just put a link in the chat for people. So if you need help finding that information, if you need help mapping what that means for your communities, that's what the technical assistance is for. So yeah, so if that's helpful to people.
Thank you.
Awesome. This is really cool. I know we only have 8 minutes left. What do you guys say about doing breakouts for 5 minutes and then coming back on, and hopefully you guys get to mix and mingle and make some connections that you'll get to talk to and deepen tomorrow at the happy hour. So we'll just break off. What do you think, Marissa?
Sounds great. I'm going to put those questions up here for people to talk about, and we will also drop them. Oops, sorry about that. We'll go back to that one. Drop them in the chat so that people have them. And if you don't talk about these questions and you just meet each other, that works too.
Right. All righty, the rooms are there. How was it? Got a chance to connect, talk a little bit, mingle.
Like people are still coming back in.
Definitely enjoy the information and just all the advocacy that's being done. It's just so much that you guys are involved with and pushing forward. And I don't think enough people are aware, or if not, being brought to their attention more often of the work that's being done. But I truly think that it's necessary to support you guys and definitely get the word out. Amen.
Absolutely. I think the 60 seconds has passed. Alrighty, well, we want to thank you all for staying on to the end, for networking, asking questions, and for just soaking up all this good information. The Baltimore Climate Summit continues tomorrow for a happy hour at Black Wall Hitch, right downtown. We hope to see you there. And I'm going to hand it over to Marissa to give you all some closing remarks.
Yeah, thanks. And we had a couple people who put other events coming up in the chat. We will copy the chat. We will save all that information, and that will also go out in a summary email along with this recording, so you can share it with anybody who wasn't here. We really are grateful for you taking the time to be here. I said at the top that Maryland LCV is all about educating and activating people to put forward equitable and just political solutions. And that can't happen unless the people come to these kinds of events and the people do the work. So thank you so much for being here and being part of this community. And yes, tomorrow's happy hour, Blackwell Hitch. We hope to see you all 5:30 to 7:30 in Baltimore.
All
Thank
righty.
you for having us.
Thank you for joining. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you for the partnership. Thank you for the presenters. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Enjoy
Thank you,
your
guys.
day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hope to see you soon to continue the fight.
All righty.
Hi, Erica. Bye, Erica.
Kari, do you have the chat saved? Doesn't look like I can do it.
Yeah, that's what I want to make sure that I get.
Okay.
I'm always nervous because every time I want to save the chat, I end the meeting and then I don't have it and I'm upset. So
We have a few people who are still with us. I don't know if we want to.
I think you can stop the recording without stopping the webinar also, if you want to do that.